Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. As you guys know, it is October and October is spooky season, so I thought for this video we'll do a spooky reading vlog. I have a couple of books that are on my TBR that I think would be perfect for spooky season. The first book I've already started is The Shining by Stephen King. If you saw my October TBR video, you know that this is on my October TBR, and it is a bit chunky, doesn't really look like it on camera, but this is a solid 650 pages. I figured I would take you on this journey with me. I am currently on page 82, so I got to the end of part 1. I'm about here, so this is the end of part 1. So far, I have been enjoying it. We have met our characters, Jack, Wendy, and Danny. So Jack is a former English professor who has just gotten a job as the caretaker for a hotel in Colorado. He got fired from his job as an English professor due to an incident, and so he moved his wife Wendy and their kid Danny out to Colorado, and they are going to be moving into the Overlook Hotel. The first 80 pages is honestly just set up and giving background information. Part 1 is literally called Prefatory Matters, so it's just explaining everything that happened prior to the events of them moving to the Overlook. It establishes Jack with a drinking problem. He's an alcoholic who's currently sober, who has some anger management issues. It establishes the rocky relationship between him and Wendy and shows how Wendy was considering divorce, and it sets up Danny, who is a very interesting 5-year-old with special abilities. Danny is able to kind of read minds, I guess. He can kind of see what a person is thinking about. I think it's described that their thoughts will have like one main topic word that he can see, and the rest of it comes across as like colors. Like when it's really sad and dark, it's like black or blue, and then anger is more red. But he can kind of intuit what the people around him are thinking, and he has this friend that he calls Tony who helps him see these thoughts. I have seen the movie for this, but I honestly don't remember much of what happened in the movie. The only things that I know are that I thought the movie was boring, and that movie, I believe, is one of the adaptations that Stephen King hates the most from his work. So I am hoping and expecting the book version to be better. We'll see how it goes. This book has 5 parts, so I will probably update you when I am finished with part 2. Hey guys, so it's a few days later and I thought I would give you guys an update on The Shining. Right now, I just finished part 3, so I'm about like halfway through the book almost. I am definitely enjoying this way more than I thought I would. I know that Stephen King is a very long-winded writer. His books tend to always be very large and they don't seem to really cut anything out in the editing process. Halfway through, that hasn't been the biggest issue so far. There were a couple parts in here that I think could have been done a little bit better. There is a whole chapter or 2 where he's reading articles upon articles of the hotel and its history. While I'm sure that is going to come back into play later on in the book, I do think that the way that information was conveyed to us was done a bit poorly. I don't think we needed a whole chapter full of actual articles written about this hotel. I think we could have sped it up a little bit and kind of gotten Jack's reaction to the articles more than what the articles were actually saying. I think the reason why the long-windedness is kind of working for this book is because it keeps alternating between a normal state where everything seems fine, there doesn't seem to be anything odd, creepy, or supernatural going on, to Danny's point of view where you get that little spurts of horror. You forget about the creepiness and settle back into a sense of like calm. The book is just getting me more and more on edge. And where I left off in this was a pretty big cliffhanger, and I would expect that from here the horror is about to be turned up full scale. Now, this is the first time I've ever read a true like horror book. I've read one other Stephen King, but that was more of a paranormal, no, what are aliens considered? Supernatural? That was more of a supernatural kind of sort of mystery thriller as opposed to a horror, which The Shining is. I'm usually okay with horror movies. I tend to just like laugh my way through it, but I am moving so slowly through The Shining because every creepy event that has happened in this book has put me on edge. I always need to stop and do something to just get my mind off of it. I am hoping that I'll be able to finish this kind of soon, but this is definitely putting me in the vibes of like October spooky season. I think one of my other complaints about this book is that Danny is supposed to be 5 years old, and reading his point of view doesn't really seem like he's 5. He reads as much older, he doesn't read as a little kid. It's really easy to forget how young of a character Danny is, which makes some sentences or descriptions a little weird until I remember. But it hasn't really taken me out of the story. Even though Danny feels older, his point of view is still really good, and it does a very good job of giving the creepy horror atmosphere. I will probably keep reading, and I will update you guys again once I get to the end of part 4. Hey you guys, it's a few days later, and I forgot to update you guys on The Shining after part 4, but I finished it. Overall, I thought this was pretty good. This was a very slow-paced book. Normally, I don't like slow paces, but I feel like it helped allow the uneasy, kind of unsettling atmosphere to build. The beginning started out with very sparse paranormal activity, and it slowly got more and more frequent as the book went on. I think that really helped show Jack and how he devolved into just madness, and really emphasized the change in his thought process as the Overlook kind of influenced him and took over. I did think that Jack's chapters felt like exposition all the way through the book. It felt like a brain dump. We were bouncing around topics, like trying to listen to someone with ADHD ramble on about his past, about the hotel's past. A lot of it was just information dumping through rambling, which was enjoyable for the first half of the book, but once we got into parts 4 and 5, felt a bit repetitive. I feel like some of the exposition and information that was added into the second half of the book didn't really add anything to the story at that point. It just felt like unnecessary details. That being said, the last 100 pages had me hooked. I was on edge. I was a little stressed reading it. Like, my adrenaline was definitely pumping in the last 100 pages of this book. I think overall the book is a very good scary story, and it does a very good job at putting you on edge and kind of giving this creepy, spooky atmosphere. But more than that, I think it does a very good job of delving into deeper topics. I saw somewhere that when Stephen King wrote this book, it was while he was suffering from alcoholism, while his alcoholism was kind of taking more control over his life. And you can definitely see the influence in this book. Jack definitely feels like a self-insert character for Stephen King. Jack suffers from alcoholism, from anger management issues. Jack grew up in an abusive household with a violent father. And so this book very much questions what causes somebody to become a violent person. And it questions how much does your past control what you do in the future. So if you are someone who grew up in an abusive household, or if you are a recovering alcoholic or someone who suffers from anger management issues, will you be able to continuously fight your inner demons the rest of your life, or is it just inevitable that you will succumb to them and that those demons will take control of you? I thought it was very interesting, both on the deeper level and also just on the flat out horror spooky level. I think that this was way better than the movie. This was very good. I ended up rating this a 3.5 stars. This was hovering around a 4 to 4.25 up until I hit a slow part in part 4. So yeah, I think that's everything I have to say on The Shining. For the next book in this spooky reading vlog, I'm not quite sure what book I'm going to read yet. I am deciding between Strange Houses by Uketsu and Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. Strange Houses is this short little horror that involves a lot of floor plans. It's a Japanese translated fiction. I'm not really sure how this works or what it's about, but on the back it says it is a labyrinthine and multi-layered horror mystery that is wonderfully complex and carefully crafted, and Uketsu keeps readers guessing until the very end. I'm thinking maybe I'll read this just because it is quite short, or I'll read Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This is her new adult novel. Not Quite Dead Yet is about this girl who was attacked and has some sort of brain injury that will cause her to die in, I think, 7 days. And so she spends those 7 days trying to solve her own murder mystery. Not sure which one I'm feeling yet, but you guys will find out in a second. Hey everybody, so it's the next day and I decided to start Strange Houses. Right now I am 50% of the way through the book. So far I am enjoying it. It is a very, very easy read, and I think it is very interesting. But this book doesn't really give horror. It feels a lot more like a mystery kind of book. Basically, the author of this book is sent a floor plan from a friend who is trying to decide if he should buy a house. And when looking at the floor plan, some things seem a little off. So he sends it to his architecture friend, and he and his architecture friend start going down this rabbit hole of thinking that murders have happened in this floor plan, and they basically start trying to solve the mystery of these floor plans and whether or not they had anything to do with murders that were happening in the city. It feels a lot more like a detective book and like a mystery than a horror. I think that it is definitely possible that something like this could happen in real life. It still feels far-fetched to me. I feel removed from the horror of the story. I'm not sure if that is just because of the translation. Since this is translated from Japanese, I'm not sure if some of it just didn't translate well, or if it was just the style that this book was written in that I don't feel super immersed in the horror, but I am fully immersed in the mystery of it all. I'm very intrigued to see where it goes next. I am having a great time reading it. I think that this book is very unique, but I was expecting to be scared. I just haven't been this entire book. I've just been fascinated by it. So far, really enjoying it. Definitely recommend at this point. This book is pretty short, so I probably will try and finish this tonight. Hey guys, so I finished Strange Houses last night, and I thought it was really good. I will say that I'm not really sure why this book is classified as horror. I feel like this wasn't scary in the slightest. In all honesty, I think that the scariest part of this book is the author picture at the back. Let me show you. Like this, seeing this was probably the scariest part of reading this book. I think that the fun of this book was more so following the author and his architecture friend fall down this rabbit hole trying to solve a mystery. The way that the book was written, it very much feels like you're just sitting there with two friends kind of brainstorming and fantasizing about what's wrong with these houses and like why these houses are the way that they are. While I guess everything in here could happen, I feel like as the book went on, the stories got more and more outlandish, more and more far-fetched. But honestly, I wasn't really reading this for believable explanations. I think that the open-endedness and kind of wild daydreams they were coming up with was a lot of the fun in the book. You just had no idea where any of it was going. I thought this was really good. I had a lot of fun with it. It definitely wasn't what I expected, and if you were looking for a horror, this is not your book. But I did really enjoy it. I am giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. With that, that's the end of this video. I had a really good time reading these kind of spooky reads and getting into the mood of October. If you guys have any other spooky reads that you enjoyed, leave them in the comments down below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!